Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today's July 7th, and today we're taking a look at the visible satellite imagery here. You can see the general troughing still offshore here, spreading some clouds over the region. We might trigger a thunderstorm in eastern Washington, British Columbia today, as well as some severe weather scheduled for Montana into Alberta today as well. Mostly dry, though, around portions of western Washington, Oregon, into southern BC as we go through the day today. So we should start to warm up a bit on into early and mid next week. So we'll take a look at that here coming up in the extended forecast. Now, taking a look at that thunderstorm potential here, you can see the severe for Montana extended through eastern Washington for just a general thunderstorm risk. Tornado chance even out there in Montana today includes Great Falls and Glasgow. Some big hail possible out there as well. So we go through day 2. You can see that thunderstorm threat extended back down towards the Cascades of Oregon, eastern Oregon, extreme northeast Washington. And that will again include British Columbia, especially eastern British Columbia. Checking out SeaTac here, 74 degrees yesterday, probably up closer to the average high today, 76 for SeaTac. Nowhere near the 90 degrees we had in 2010, however, but warmer temperatures are coming on into next week, it looks like at this point. HER, 3 km, high resolution rapid refresh. Look at the 70s through southern BC into western Washington, Oregon. Cooler along the coast and warmer for eastern Washington and Oregon. Classic summer pattern. And now we're looking at 10,000 feet, 700 millibars. You see the troughing position over us here. This is what's been spawning that severe weather through Montana, Colorado, Wyoming, into portions of Canada here, and bringing us our thunderstorms for portions of the Cascades yesterday, eastern Washington, Oregon, into British Columbia. Eventually, this trough is going to release its grip on us, and a new one will form over the Gulf of Alaska here. As you can see, some ridging will be building, some heat will be building up over the southwest, especially the Intermountain West here. And we're going to get some warm days all the way up into British Columbia here coming up through mid next week. But you can see that troughing not far away. It's going to keep some onshore flow and general marine influence here across much of the western portions here. But some of the eastern portions of Oregon, especially Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana, are really going to warm up here through the extended. So we'll continue to watch this day by day. Now we're looking here at the dynamic tropopause. We're looking at the North Pole here. There's Alaska, Washington, there's Hawaii out here. Here's Africa. So we're looking at the difference between the troposphere height from the equator to the poles. It's generally lower here. The air mass is colder over the North Pole, and you can see how the yellows, the greens, and the blues. And this shows troughs that drop down in that cold air nice, and you can see the one hanging off our coastline here now. And as we put that into motion, you can really see that cold air drop over the Gulf of Alaska here coming up through early next week. It's going to help bring that ridging across our area here. But then it's eventually going to come and drop down pretty close to portions of southwest BC, Washington, and Oregon, and probably bring some marine influence to western portions, at least portions west of the Cascades. So here's taking a cross-section look at that. The equator, you can see how the troposphere is higher here versus lower here, the North Pole, the polar cell. This is because the air mass, of course, is colder here, and you can see as these move down, this tend to be where the more stormy areas occur, and these can drop down and bring troughing off the coastline to similar to what's going on now off our coast. But this guy gives you a nice cross-section of why the troposphere is higher at the equator versus the polar area is just more heating and the atmosphere is thicker. Now checking out here, GFS surface temperatures here. This is North America, Washington, Oregon, California, Alaska. Hawaii is way out over here. Now if I put this through, I'm going to let this run through pretty quick here. And notice that pulsing that goes across the lower 48 there. That's the diurnal heating cycle that goes on. And you notice the Pacific and the Atlantic don't warm up that much. The water absorbs that heat during the day versus the land. It really reflects that heat, and you can kind of see it there as the ocean just kind of gathers it in. Water holds much more heat than the land does. So as we go through the days here, you can see that Gulf of Alaska troughing here, fairly seasonably strong low pressure system over the Gulf of Alaska. And this thermal trough tries to build up here along the California coast, but it doesn't quite make it up to the Washington coast. And that's what we would need in some offshore flow to bring us our really nice heat waves. So while we're going to get warm, we're not going to get heat wave type warmth here up through western Oregon, western Washington, and British Columbia. And then you can kind of see this these cooler temperatures move in maybe in towards later next week as we start to get more of a marine influence from this low pressure system off the coastline here. But you can really see some of the Intermountain West, California, the deserts, portions of eastern Oregon and Washington as well are going to get some pretty good heat out of this as we go through next week as well. So we'll continue to watch that and see just how hot certain portions of the Pacific Northwest will get. But check out this high pressure in the extended here over the Pacific. This is kind of a classic summertime pattern here, and that's what keeps that persistent north flow going down the Washington, Oregon coast generally in the summertime patterns, as the Pacific high just really gets established here. A classic summer pattern there. GFS Seattle. I think these are a little warm for the next few days. I think we're going to be closer to the mid 70s coming up here. And the National Blended Model shows that, maybe a couple degrees warmer than that. So somewhere in between the National Blended Models here and the GFS for the next few days. But you can kind of see that hint of some heat early and mid next week. I think we'll get a little bit warmer than what the National Blended Models is showing here. Now, this is the GFS for Spokane, the troughing, and then eventually the heat starts to build up as we go in through early and mid next week. Now, the GFS is kind of showing some warm days coming up for SeaTac, but I don't think we're going to get that hot. You'll generally need a thermal trough to get up our coastline to get this hot. We just don't really have that pattern coming up yet. So I think we're probably going to remain in the 80s at best for these 3 days here as we go into early and mid next week. Now, checking out this, I wanted to show you guys this here really quick. This is La Niña, this forecast released July 5th. So it looks like right now we're on the borderline of being on La Niña conditions. We're at negative 0.6 right now. Negative 0.5 is the cutoff, but you can see that we're probably going to increase those La Niña conditions as we go through fall and early winter, but then we may start bouncing back out into a neutral period here. And eventually in the next year or two, that means we're probably headed towards an El Nino. So something to look forward to there for a change in the weather pattern possibly coming up here. Now, taking a look at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, you can see the National Weather Service showing that above average signal here for Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, through portions of eastern Oregon as well. And really above average temperature is probably going to extend all the way out to the coastline here in the 6 to 10 day period. Precipitation below average for western portions at least. You can see monsoon moisture will probably be making its way up all the way in through eastern Oregon at times here, and above average signal there for Utah as well. Check out Alaska also. Now, 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, you can see that signal there for Montana, Idaho, and generally for much of the Pacific Northwest as well. And you can see that precipitation again for the monsoon moisture probably going to be above average through this period. And here's 3 to 4 weeks out. This was issued July 1st, includes much of the Pacific Northwest here. Check out that signal for Texas also. So yeah, we might do some thunderstorms again here through eastern Washington into British Columbia. If you're headed out towards Montana or up through Alberta, Canada, watch out for those severe storms. They've really been having quite the active severe weather season there for portions of eastern Montana. It's going to continue over the next couple of days at least here coming up. But some nice weather in store for the Pacific Northwest here. Seattle, Portland into the mid 70s the next few days, and we should warm up a bit next week before we try to drop another trough down and near the area, and we'll see what kind of weather that brings. It shows some precipitation coming up here, maybe on in through later on in through next week. We'll continue to watch that. Maybe we'll get some thunderstorms eventually here into the western portions of Washington, Oregon. We've kind of been missing out on all the fun that's been going on across some of the eastern slopes of the Cascades, eastern British Columbia, eastern Washington, Idaho, and portions of the eastern Oregon. Been getting some nice thunderstorms over the last few days. So anyway, we'll do this again tomorrow, and I hope you guys are liking these videos. Leave some comments below. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.